And hello, everybody. My name is NikoTheLegend, also known as the well-mannered teenager and the snowflake. And today we're going to be talking about 5 ways BioWare can save itself. And what does it mean 5 ways BioWare can save itself? What does that even mean to you as a viewer or a listener right now? Well, if you haven't been caught up on the latest BioWare news or condition or whatever they are doing right now, let us just say that BioWare is really under fire and just not doing very well. It is just not a healthy company to be working at right now, or even developing, working at, releasing games, services, HR, just all things that could go wrong with any kind of company. BioWare is facing that. And if you need proof of that, there are 2 articles that recently came out about the current about the latest, one of the latest, biggest articles, probably, maybe I would say, to gaming history, and at least biggest for BioWare, is Anthem: What Went Wrong. That is a video I did about a few weeks ago. It is about a 50-minute long video because I read through the whole article about what Anthem is, what was it about. And, well, I really wanted to say Anthem 101 and just all the problems that they had. And then there was another video that I recently released that was another big article for BioWare, was the current development of what was going on with Dragon Age. And a lot of these articles really tie in to each other. They have continuity to them. They're topical, and they're actually also very topical and relatable to the sense of other companies that have been doing kind of the same thing. We'll get to examples in a bit here. Let's go with the 5 ways BioWare can save itself. And like I said, if I missed anything, guys, just let me know in the comments below, and we're just going to go through this list. Like I said, if you want to know the fine details of why BioWare is completely flunking, you will have the videos. The top 2 links for top 3 links will have the answer for you. And let's go. Number 1, stop mistreating your employees. Now, this is something that has been, like I said, topical before. For example, there have been a few studios, for example, as in Rockstar with Red Dead Redemption 2, there's been the Telltale's company studio, and then now it's BioWare under the same bus. And what does this mean, stop mistreating your employees? Well, giving them the pay they deserve and stop making them work overtime to where they feel they have anxiety and depression. Any company that will make you do this with undoubtedly crunch time and high pressure and a lot of things going into a game, a lot of development, a lot of things go into making a game, obviously. But the things that make it different is the way it's being handled and how employees are being treated. So like I mentioned before, a lot of employees have been dealing with anxiety and depression to where, like I said, the Anthem What Went Wrong article will definitely explain a lot of the things that I'm talking about now. Basically, employees would just feel depressed. They would leave the company. They would quit. Big-time developers would leave, as well as small developers. Of course, the big names will be listed in that article I keep mentioning. The small names, not so much, because people didn't want anybody knowing about their mistreatment, and specifically, just in general, is that BioWare needs to stop mistreating its employees. A lot of the times during the development recently for Anthem and Andromeda, a lot of the employees, their concerns were not being attended to. And that's with the overtime, the work hours, no extra pay or nothing. Just living in a box all day without any room for air, suffocating, no sunlight to hit your face. That is something that this company is very suffering on. It's definitely a shame. It's scary, and I hate for companies to do that. Like I said, Telltale's had to be shut down. Because they weren't just making the money, they were overambitious company, and employees were complaining about the same thing, mistreated. My thing is, the people that have left because of the company's working conditions were too harsh I hate to say this, but are the smartest ones, that they did the right thing. Big time developers saw that, small time developers saw that as well. Employees is what I mean. Big time employees and small time employees. And I think it's something that everybody should do. They should be out of those companies that aren't being treated fairly and just not getting the respect they deserve. All right, and like I said, we're just touching base on a few examples, and then a few things here and there. You can go into greater detail, but guys, we all work at jobs, 9 to 5 jobs, about the majority of us. If you haven't yet, and you're over the age of 18, what are you doing? But you get the idea of what poor working conditions can be. So just imagine what they are going through, probably 10 times worse. All right, the second one, upper management needs clarity and reality check. Yes. So as further up you go on the management spectrum, so as it is hard to see what's happening down below. It's really hard to look at the bottom, see what people are doing at the bottom of the mountain. And that's just not being like a narcissistic approach to it. That's just what happens. And sometimes people just like tooting their own horn so much in their rose-colored glasses that they don't want to listen to the needs and demands of their employees, as we mentioned before. And then upper management just needs to give people answers. This is your job as upper management, to provide, as it states, clarity and a reality check. Let people know in the meetings what's going down, what's happening, what are we doing. But Anthem's development and Dragon Age, and of course Andromeda, just BioWare recently has just not been able to come up with a lot of decisions to make. And that happens when you don't have the right people doing the right job. Sometimes it happens to where people are in this position and they just don't do their job properly, and it's really frustrating, and people just don't know what to do. Everyone's running around like a chicken with their head cut off. It's just ridiculous. And another thing is that reality check is maybe BioWare should stop working on multiple games at a time. I get it that EA is the real evil and BioWare is the lesser evil. That is truth right now. As much as we love BioWare, they're still the lesser evil in this, okay? And I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. So don't, all the players that have been buying BioWare games, have been doing EA stuff, buying EA games, we are the monkey in the middle. And for some reason, we just can't learn from our mistakes, despite us knowing that it's going to be a rough ride. And like I said, Anthem dealt with a lot of mismanagement. They needed people to make a decision. There was so much second guessing. There was so much decision changes and everything, and people didn't. Everyone wanted something differently, but they couldn't come to as an understanding or a compromise to choose something. Choose something. Because once you have a goal in mind, everybody can work at it, and everybody feels great about that. When everybody doesn't know what the goal is, and even when employees have a problem with that, and upper management's not listening, then that's a big deal right there. Okay, number 3, get back to core competencies. All right, this is probably one of the biggest ones. After so long, developers and franchises start to get franchise fatigue, and they kind of lose track of themselves and kind of lose a bit of their identity, kind of lose the core values of what made them great to begin with. And as they say, the less resources you have, the harder you work to achieve to make something great. And then the more resources you have, the harder it is to maintain, to handle that upkeep. And that is a very true statement that happens with BioWare, because there's multiple companies that work on multiple different game franchises. And especially under EA, they like to branch out in all things, shapes, and sizes. And that's something that BioWare never really did back in the day. They may have worked on Knights of the Republic, and then they moved on to Jade Empire, and then they're like, okay, now we want to make another new IP, which was Mass Effect and then Dragon Age. And Mass Effect and Dragon Age was their 2 IPs that they were strongly passionate about and working on the most. But ever since they were owned by EA, things were being sped up a little too fast. It was a little too much of a gamble. And it all started with Dragon Age 2. And that is, that's a big no-no. And you definitely get, it's very nerve-wracking. You get self-conscious. You don't know if you're doing the right thing or making the right decisions on this time around. You don't know what the right way is to go, especially when you don't have the upper management doing their jobs on telling you, hey, this is what made us great back in the day. This is what we should be doing now. Making RPGs, making games that people can love and understand and just enjoy it all over again. And they lost their ways. A lot of companies do that. Mortal Kombat NetherRealm Studios is a perfect example of a company losing its identity in the process, because they were just getting franchise fatigued crazy, and then Mortal Kombat 9 came out, and then that just kind of just rebooted the franchise and just made everyone love Mortal Kombat again. And don't worry, it's going to happen again. Franchise fatigue will always happen. It's the same thing with Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed. After what is it, Syndicate, and after Unity, they decided to take their time on making an Assassin's Creed game that came out with Origins. It was a good refresh, reboot to the series. I'm just calling it a reboot because it was just such a different impact, such a big impact for the franchise, and people were resurrected to coming back to playing those games. And of course, you get diehard fans that will play any of the games that is released by their favorite company. I get that. That's just loyalty. But your subjects are going to get so pissed, like they are now, that they're going to be getting those pitchforks ready and pretend you're Shrek from Shrek. Okay, and we are at number 4. Stop using Frostbite. Oh my God, Frostbite. The death, the Achilles heel for BioWare, or the arrow into the Achilles heel of BioWare. Oh my God. Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda are prime examples, also Dragon Age Inquisition, are prime examples of what Frostbite has done for the company. And you know what? Thank God, but also they don't like to admit it, but Dragon Age Inquisition was a great success for the company, even though there's a lot of things that people didn't like. I understand. We won't get so far into that, but if you play the game, you kind of understand what I'm talking about. But it got Game of the Year for a reason, because down to its core, it was a great RPG and a fun game to play. Now, that game was using the Frostbite engine, the first one to release it using it. And let's just say, guys, that instead of using the Unreal Engine, they had to use Frostbite in it is a first-person shooter engine originally made to make Battlefield games. So you can imagine what it's like to get a tool set when it's meant for first-person shooter games. You gotta learn the whole system. You have to reverse engineer it. You have to start from scratch. You have to make your own tool set. You have to make your own, just own everything. And that is what caused them the most frustration. Is besides management issues and all the employment stuff, problems, Frostbite was just this horrible freaking shot through the heart. And Frostbite was used in Andromeda, and like I said, you can see the example of the animation issues. And although the graphics look great in Andromeda, don't get me wrong, but the animations was just a prime example. And then Anthem as well. It was just a lot of repeats, a lot of resets went on with using Frostbite. And then now for Dragon Age 4, they are not using what they used for Dragon Age Inquisition. Not that tool set. They are using what they used for Anthem. So here we are again. Back to reality. Okay, besides that, get out, the last one, number 5. Get out from under EA. All right, yes, EA. The huge boot that steps on multiple companies, shuts them down, makes sure they never see the light of day. The Nazi organization of today when it comes to gaming companies. And I'm not kidding, guys. You guys have to understand that EA is definitely the most corrupted. And I hate to say this because, it's like, oh, corporations are bad. I'm like, not all corporations are bad, okay? But this one in particular is the one to poke the most fun at, because it is the biggest one we see that fucks up every single time they release a big-time game. Battlefront 2. And then, Ultima Series. Ultima Online. And then, Visceral Games. Dead Space. Oh, geez. There's a whole list. The list is just, it goes on and on, okay? And then, Bullfrog Studios. Poor Peter Molyneux. And now we're on Anthem with BioWare, or just BioWare and EA. And don't get me wrong, EA and BioWare were doing well for the longest time. Mass Effect 2 was a fantastic game, which you can tell that BioWare had definitely the most creative freedom in that game. Dragon Age 2 is when they went a polar opposite. It was the opposite thing, when they didn't have much time or anything. The Old Republic, on the other hand, I think is one of my favorite games I've ever played, and it was such a great MMO. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I still play it to this day. And they're still releasing content for it. But A lot of people did leave because it was definitely did not have the end game people were looking for in an MMO. But story wise and gameplay, I loved it. It was one of my favorite Star Wars games of all time, and it got great reviews. You know, it's a big deal. Now, Mass Effect 3 is when it also came downhill with the galactic readiness and forced to play online in order to achieve the now don't crucify me when I say it's the best ending you can get, okay? But you get what I'm trying to say, and yeah, it has gone downhill from there. They did it with Dead Space 3. So they started putting microtransactions in that. Battlefront 2 was the worst microtransaction scheme that could have been. Mass Effect Andromeda, of course, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, Anthem is definitely the one that faced the boot the worst. So, BioWare, in conclusion, BioWare needs to do what Bungie did with Activision. Activision and EA are definitely not the best companies to work with. Bungie got the hell out of there, hell out of Dodge, and I'm sure they feel great about it. And since BioWare is facing the most severe case of corporate punishment, it's literally what it's like for them. And also, you know, they need to do it as well. Despite having the resources, despite having the money, it's like, guys, you were successful, great, small-time company, small as in comparatively today, but back in the day they were still big when it came to popularity. But resource-wise, not the same. They need to go back to their roots, know their roots. And folks, this is something that we should help them realize the error of their ways. And I'm sure they know. I'm sure they know. But sometimes it's just not enough from what they know. Sometimes the answer is right in front of them, and they just don't understand how to escape it. And that is it for 5 ways BioWare can save itself. A lot of this was unscripted. Well, actually, just about all of it was unscripted. But I have been reading like a teleprompt, like a person on a late night show reading off a teleprompter in the last 2 big articles with Dragon Age development and Anthem. I thought it would be nice to do a more unscripted, design this time around. But folks, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And sorry you haven't been seeing my face lately. I just like recording in my underwear. Ha! Just kidding, folks. But maybe. All right. You take care. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the galaxy far, far away. Oh, wait. That's not Mass Effect.